Welcome back to Two Marks and a Spark on Lock
Greetings.
22. And for the first time this week, back on the audio feed for the first time in a long time, Uncle Russ
Yes.
is here.
Yes.
I'm here as always. Uncle Russ, this AEW show is the definition of shooting yourself in the foot when you don't need to.
Well, I tell
My
you what, it started out
God.
fantastic. I was, well, you and I were amazed at how good the first half was.
I thought I was watching the wrong company for
Yeah.
3 hours. I was like, wow, this is great. Like, they're doing something really good here. Even
But I think
Mercedes,
that by the end of the night, they kind of steered the truck right into a ditch. You know what I mean?
they steered it right into oncoming traffic, actually.
Yeah.
So let's just go one by one here. We didn't watch the pre show because I had paint to watch dry and Russ had other
Yeah.
stuff to do.
Well, I kind of had it I heard some of it in the background, you know.
Well, did anyone say
About a,
anything
it was an
especially?
hour and a half that they could have spent doing something else.
Well, yeah. Like maybe changing the ending to the main event. Anyway, we had MJF and Hangman Adam Page for about 20 minutes to start the show. This was awesome.
Very,
Uh
I tell you what, I thought this was one of Hangman's better matches. I think he's gotten a lot better. This one was very, very well done.
Hangman gets the win, which I guess he was the babyface in the feud, and this is the blow off. So I guess that kind of makes sense.
I guess
Uh,
he's a pretty nice baby face for a vampire arsonist, you know.
who burns people's houses down?
Yep,
Anyway, so Hangman wins. That match was really good.
excellent.
Nothing,
I was very impressed. I thought Tony Khan is off to a good start here. Let's keep up the pace.
or let's see how he fucks it. And it would take him a while to fuck it up. Then
Yes,
we had Momo Watanabe from Stardom challenging Mercedes Monet for the TBS title. This might have been Mercedes' best match.
I thought so too. I enjoyed this better than anything else I've seen her do since she arrived in the company. And maybe it's just a matter of finding the right opponents for her to really get my interest peaked. But this, I thought, was a very, very good. I like this better than the women's title match, to tell you the truth,
I didn't. We'll get to
personally.
that.
Yeah,
We'll get to that. I didn't think Hangman MJF was given enough time. I thought that probably needed another 5 minutes. We'll get to why here in a second, and
sure.
I'll give you what I think they could have taken some time away from. Ricochet and Swerve was way better than it had any right to be.
Yes, it
Um,
was. And I tell you what, I got to give them props to, I give Tony Khan a lot of criticism for some of his writing and his booking. However, I'll give him credit for something, an ability. When Ricochet first arrived, they obviously wanted to bring him in with a baby face as welcome. When the crowd reacted so negatively, I've never seen anybody just pivot right and almost like in midstream, just pivot immediately and adjust to that. And within a week, they had established him as one of the worst heels in the company. And to
yeah,
me, that was just an amazing ability to scrap all your plans and just go with the flow. Very, very smart booking, in my opinion.
and this match goes about 18 minutes. They have a
Yeah,
very good match. It was the perfect length. Swerve wins. He is the number one contender for the world title. I'll get to why that stipulation was stupid later, but we're moving on.
right.
Uh,
Yes.
we
It
then
was
had
good to
Brody
see.
King.
They teased a little bit of conflict between Prince Donna and Swerve, too. Apparently, that's all been resolved. He got the role back.
Yeah. Well, then we had Brody King and Kazuchika Okada. I might as well have not seen this match. I had a bunch of technical difficulties on the fight
Or
side of
did you?
things. This
Well, this was well done. I thought
I
this was
what
well
what I
done.
saw of this match, what I was able to see was very good.
Yes.
It wasn't long enough. This
Well,
match was only 11 minutes.
I just am so impressed, and you really stop and look at the way Okada moves around the ring. And that has got to be possibly the most beautifully executed standing drop kick I've ever seen in
Oh,
my
it is.
life. I mean,
It is.
he is just, I mean, his persona, his gimmick. I'm not 100% there with it, but his in-ring ability is phenomenal. I see why he's got such a good reputation coming here.
Well, he ends up beating Brody King, retaining the Continental title. And then we had what I thought was going to be the worst match on this show, and it was for 95% of the show. The Outrunners against the Hurt Syndicate. This was horrendous. Oh my God.
This,
This is worse than I
I
thought it
thought
was
this
going
was
to
going
be.
to be over. I thought this should have been over in about 2 or 3 minutes.
It went 9, and it was 7 minutes too long.
Nine
And
minutes. Okay,
yeah,
I one of the shorter matches then.
yeah, it was still too long. Um,
Well, you see, I like the Outrunners. I think there's a place for a team
they're the
like
only
that.
one.
I like the nostalgia factor, and I like the comedy. But I really didn't think this was really a good match overall because it's so obvious going in that this is not a credible challenge. They
Well,
they
one of
should
the
have matched them with somebody a little bit more their speed. And that's not an insult on them. It's just that I don't see any team that they have that can seriously take on someone like the Hurt Syndicate credibly.
FTR,
Yes,
FTR.
FTR could, but for some reason, you know, they go out of their way to bury FTR. It seems like.
Well, anyway, the Outrunners were botching all over the place in this match. I don't know what happened here. These two teams could not get on the same page to save their lives. MVP got really pissed at one point and just looked like he wanted nothing to do with any of this. Bobby Lashley looked like he was ready to quit. Shelton just looked
Wonky, wasn't
disgusted. Huh?
it? A little wonky, you might say.
Well, Turbo Floyd botched getting into the ring. I don't know if you saw this. He tried to jump over the ropes. He just about dove and ate shit.
Yep, I did see that.
And and
I thought
Priest
he
had
wa-
a
I thought
couple
he
of
was going to fall flat on his face.
I that might have made this match better if he did.
Well, they do a lot of comedy.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, the Hurt Syndicate won. Spoiler alert.
Right.
I don't think I'm saying anything here when I say Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley beat these two dweebs.
They sure
Anyway,
did. They sure did. And as always, in my opinion, Lashley or Benjamin have never been great talkers, but they don't need to. When you got MVP to talk for you, you don't need to say a word. He's one of the best talkers around, in my opinion.
and would you agree that both of them looked thoroughly disgusted with everything going on in this match and just did not want to be there?
Sure. Yeah.
By the end, Shelton had this look on his face when they won, like, why? Why are we here? Bobby, this was a bad idea.
It just felt like a gross bench match.
Anyway, we then had Mariah May and Tony Storm in the Hollywood ending. This
Boy,
was great.
I tell you what, I thought it got too bloody, too violent, but that's just me. I don't usually like women bleeding that much. But boy, it was well done, I Tony's what a couple of great athletes. Tony Storm retains the championship. How long did this one go on? This was a little bit longer, was it not?
This was only 13 minutes.
Okay, well, it felt a little longer than that.
It did. But it was very good. It was very well done. It was false count anywhere. Tony ends up pinning her on the ramp. Uh, Aubrey Edwards looked legitimately concerned for both of them at multiple points.
Yep. Joined by JR at this point, who stayed with him the rest of the night. And
Well, part of the rest of the night. Part of
right.
it.
Well,
He
Jim
was in,
Ross, his great line here was the claret is flowing.
yeah,
The claret.
he's right.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, what's he mean claret? I said, that's like a Bordeaux or like a red wine, I believe.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
This match should have gone on last. Right? This should have just been the main event, right?
Well, considering how the main event ended, I would agree with you. Yeah,
Like, just and everybody's gonna say, "Oh, they gave him the main event a Grand Slam." Who cares?
yeah. Well, that wasn't as great a show either.
No. Uh, then
This
we
was a
had,
good match, but it would have been nice to have it as an ending.
and it should have been longer. Really, had more time to build up to what they got to. Because they just let shit hit the fan right away there. And then we had Konosuke Takeshita defending the international title that feels like he'd held forever against Kenny Omega, and they swerved us, Russ.
Yes,
They
they did.
swerved us big style.
They sure did.
One, one, this match actually got about 30 minutes. It didn't feel like it.
Right.
Two, Kenny Omega won.
Yes, and I did not expect that, and
No,
I wasn't unhappy about it at all.
thank goodness he won. It was the one good thing that happened on this show.
Well, the only part I didn't like was when the crowd started chanting "Fight Forever." I looked at my watch and I said, "No, they already been here long enough. Don't fight forever. Just fight for another 10 minutes." And that's about what they did.
Well, Omega wins, and
Yes, was did great though here. They both did very well. How many times have
this
they
is
wrestled before they even arrived in AEW? Quite a few times, have they not?
before they got to AEW. I don't think they'd ever wrestled at all.
Okay,
Takeshita
I
isn't that
thought
old.
they. Well, I'm probably thinking of Okada then. Hasn't Kenny Omega and Okada wrestled a couple times?
100 at least.
Okay, that's what
Uh,
I was thinking of then.
and then we had Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. This match was really good inside a steel cage.
Yes,
Should have been about 10 minutes shorter. Um, there was a lot of profanity on this show, Russ, and this
yes,
match
there
had a lot
was.
of it.
This had a lot of it too. I guess they're following the lead of Cody Rhodes and deciding that f bombs are a good deal for our pay per views.
Yeah. Anyway, this match should have been about 10 minutes shorter, but it was very good. Osprey wins with the hidden blade after Osprey, or not Osprey, after Fletcher screams at him, "Fuck you, I hate you," blah, blah,
Right?
blah, blah, blah. He hits him with the hidden blade off that. That was it. One, two, three. Osprey wins in about 29 minutes. And
I kept cringing every time they talk. Well, I've heard about how bad diverticulitis is, and I was kind of cringing every time they talk about. Sooner or later, his intestines are going to explode. I was thinking, oh man, that
oh,
sounds.
with Kenny, dude,
Yeah,
anytime he gets kicked in the stomach now, I'm
yeah.
like,
I cringe too because it's risky.
it's not only risky, I mean, it's probably safe enough because I don't think they'd do it. I don't think
Yeah,
Kenny
I
would
don't
do
think
it if
they're
it wasn't.
obviously they're not honestly trying to kill each other, but yeah, you know, both these guys, Takeshita and Omega. Since I started watching them in AEW, I've come to like them better and better all the time.
Um, what did you make of Osprey Fletcher? I thought it was really good, but I thought it was too long.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit
But
too, a little bloody
Russ,
enough.
quite bloody. But Russ, we then get to the main event.
Yes, and by
I
this
have a
time, I noticed that the crowd, I think, was a little bit of fatigue was setting in because of the length of the show. Remember that most of the crowd had been there for the pre-show, so at this point, they had been there almost 5 hours and 4.5 to 5 hours. And I don't care how good a show you got, and audience fatigue is going to start setting in at some point. The mind can only endure so much.
now it
But I
was
was very, very disappointed in this main event.
I have a lot to say here.
Good, because I want to hear it because I think it ended up being a shit show.
Oh, oh, buddy. Just wait. Just let me get the payoff in, brother. Uh
Yeah.
So John Moxley and Adam Copeland. What the fuck? They have built this match up for 4 months
Right.
as dream match, first time ever.
Hmm. I expected the title to change hands.
Not only did I expect the title to change hands, I expected a little bit more of, I don't know, a back and forth. This was essentially a squash for
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Right.
This match goes 26 and a half minutes, okay?
Too long.
26 and a half. That's not too long when you actually book the match properly,
Right.
but
Right.
they didn't book the match right.
It was too long for what they were doing because it just got to be too much. You notice the crowd was out of it too. Very much. The crowd was taken completely out of the show.
And Copeland would get one big move off, and then Moxley would do a bunch of stuff, and then a rest hold, and then Copeland would get a move off, and then we'd reset.
Hmm.
And they did that for about 20 minutes. And if this sounds boring to you, ladies and gentlemen, go watch it. It
Yeah.
was.
It was a
It,
really disappointment.
yet it got worse. Unbelievably, somehow, some way, this fucking company does it again. They found a way to make the bad thing worse. Because I'm not staying up late enough on a Sunday night when I have to be to work tomorrow morning to,
Right.
watch this shit show.
I
It couldn't
know.
possibly have gotten any worse. But then it did, ladies and gentlemen. And then it did, because you know what happened? Adam Copeland hits 3 spears. It looks like he's going to fucking win. Thank God. When he hit that third spear, Russ, I legitimately said, thank fuck this is over.
Right. I thought for sure it was over.
I
And all just
thought,
get swerved in a bad way.
I thought, holy shit, they're actually going to do the right thing. This match sucks, but thank God it's over. Nope.
No.
A hooded figure. Oh, wait, we forgot to mention Wheeler Yuta interfered earlier in the match,
Right.
hit him with the briefcase. Cope kicked out at 2.9 on the slowest 3 count I've ever seen in my life. Right after that, or right before that, we had the worst paradigm shift I've ever seen, where
Yeah.
Copeland basically flung himself out of it. What the fuck was that? And sold it for some reason. I don't know why. He should have just gotten up. Uh, and then, Russ, 3 spears from Copeland. It looks like it's over. Hooded figure pulls the ref out of the ring. It's Christian Cage. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay, so they're going to put the belt on Christian.
Right.
That's fine. I'll accept the belt going on Christian. I'm fine with that.
You would think because how long now has he had that contract? It's been damn near a year, hasn't it?
Pretty close. Anyway,
So
this gets worse.
what was the point of him waiting to cash it in when it ended this way? I'm getting ahead of the story here. I'm sorry. I mean, they fucked him over really bad, in my opinion.
So Copeland tries to stop Christian from cashing in. Christian cracks Copeland one good time with the contract. Christian cashes in, hits a spear, hits the unprettier. Moxley breaks it up, chokes Christian out,
Yeah.
and John Moxley, after all that, retains the title.
Yeah. That way, and I'm not happy
Fuck
about
this
it.
company.
I don't understand where are they going now with what are we getting now? We're going to get another uh Edge and Christian feud like we
I
haven't
don't
seen
know.
about a million times already. Where are they
You,
going with this? Where does
you
this
know what they're
lead?
gonna do? You know what they're gonna do? They're probably gonna do this match again in May.
Oh yeah, that's right. Coming up, we've got one in April and one in May. We got Dynasty on April 6th, and then they announced Double or Nothing on the 25th. You notice that remember I said a couple of weeks ago they were waiting to put the dates on these until after WWE did more scheduling because yeah, they scheduled the day after a Saturday night main event. They're both companies are trying to counter program against each other, but I don't blame Tony Khan. I do exactly the same thing if I was him because I know anytime I'm going up to against the WWE, I'm going to get my ass beat in the ratings. There's no doubt about it.
Especially if you're on pay per view and they're not.
That's right.
So, Russ,
And then they end, of course, with Swerve confronting and Nana confronting Moxley, and they kind of close, teasing the matches they're going to be building for the future. I assume that we're coming up on this next one in April, Dynasty. That's probably when we're going to have the next title match. I assume Swerve
well,
versus Moxley.
yes, I would presume that's when they're going to do it. Dynasty in Philadelphia, or they have a Dynamite like right before Dynasty that they could do this match at in Minneapolis. So 50-50 as to when they do that.
Sure,
I would imagine they're going to do it at Dynasty. I don't think they'll do it in Minneapolis, even though I think they probably should. I have friends who are going to that show. That show is doing exceedingly well in ticket sales, at least by AEW standards. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do a title match on that show. I don't know if it'll be this one, but they're going to do some sort of thing there. That's in
sure.
about 3 weeks. I believe that is right before Mania, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because we're about 6 weeks from WrestleMania weekend. So that's going to be interesting. They've got a lot of time to build up to that show.
March 26th, they're in St. Paul.
Okay, March
So
26th.
I
Yeah, that's
I
Wednesday the 26th, Dynamite in St. Paul, huh?
right. So and that's the biggest other than when they go to Vegas next week for Collision, which that show's not going to matter anyway. That's the only Dynamite where I could see them maybe doing the Swerve Mox match, although I have to imagine they're going to save that for Dynasty. But who knows? Tony's done dumb shit before. He may do it
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Uh Russ, I know this is going to be hard because we have the sour taste of that horrendous main event that
right.
felt fucked from the beginning. Uh, what would you give uh, Revolution? I almost called it Dynasty for an overall grade.
I think I would probably, most of it was better than I expected, so I'd give it a B minus or a C plus. The main event really hurt it and took the overall score down, but I don't want to let it cover the fact that most of this card was actually pretty good.
I give it a B. I would have given it an A if not for the last 30 minutes just being horrible and unwatchable. And if I ever have to watch that fucking shit again, I might just gouge my eyes out with a rusty spoon.
Oh yeah.
Russ, I think we need to talk about this world title situation in AEW. I think it's time to have the conversation. What the hell are they doing?
And they don't seem to know. They don't seem to have a plan. What they're doing right now is getting pretty damn boring. John Moxley's had it forever. Same thing.
And we both
Carrying
love
around in a
Moxley.
briefcase.
And we both love Moxley, right? Like
Yeah,
Moxley's
well, I don't
great.
love him, but I don't hate him. Let's put it that way.
Would you like to hear the message I sent to Devlin,
Yes.
longtime friend of the show, when this happened?
Yes, so let's hear.
First, he said, fuck that immense bullshit. That was the first thing he said. And then I responded in all capital letters with, oh, fuck you, Tony.
That's right. Well, man, I tell you, he's probably going to be hearing a lot of that.
And then Devlin said, and I quote, Mox is my favorite AEW wrestler, but even I'm sick of this title reign. End quote.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I said, So they not only beat their best babyface option at champion as champion, but they put their best way out of this horseshit in the shitter. All capital
Right.
letters. I don't get it. I don't understand anymore. And
Yeah,
then and then
the
Devlin
ending of the
said,
show really left a bad taste in my mouth.
I don't think Tony does either. Which no truer words have been spoken.
Mhm.
I don't think Tony gets it either.
Well, I hope he figures it out.
Devlin said it pretty good. The rest of the show was a 9 out of 10. The main event was a 4, and it dragged the rest of the show down.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
I cannot believe, like, if you'd have told me this show just sucked, I think I'd have believed you. And if you'd have told me this show was awesome, I would have believed you. But if you would have told me it would have been what it was, and then they would have ruined it that
Hmm.
quick,
Makes no sense, does it?
Russ, would you be this mad had Christian won the title? Because I wouldn't.
No, no, I wouldn't
Had
be
they just
happy about it, but I would be. I think it would be better than what they're doing now. See, here's
because
the
at
other thing
least
too. That storyline and him carrying around that contract for all this time. Now, all it was all for nothing. There's no payoff. Nothing.
because at least if Christian won the title, at least they would have done something.
That's right.
At least something would have made sense.
Yeah.
Fuck this company.
I don't know, man. It was too bad.
Are
Not
Russ,
not a great ending.
are you excited for Dynasty, Russ, where we're likely to see the same thing happen
Um.
again?
Well, I don't know if I'm excited to see it. I'll definitely watch it. We'll see how they build to it in the next couple of weeks. They've got about 4 weeks to try to put together a better show than we just had. But like I said, except for the main event, it wasn't. It was pretty good.
And the build to this show was actually pretty solid. Like AEW has done a better
Better.
job since the beginning of the year with television.
Yes.
And they built this show well, and they had momentum going into this show after the disaster that was Grand Slam. They actually built up some momentum post Grand Slam.
Is that
Yes,
being reflected in are their ratings improving, or are they still pretty static?
so, but the max number is apparently really good according to WBD. So,
Okay.
and that's not going to be a public number. They're not going to make that number public, but
Sure.
according to Warner Brothers Discovery, the max number is better than you would think.
Well,
So,
I would think they wouldn't still be around. They wouldn't still be on TNT and TBS after 5 years if they weren't making some money for somebody.
right.
They'd be gone
And
by
they,
now.
and the interesting thing was, so did you watch Dynamite Wednesday? I assume you did.
Yes, I did.
So they announced on Wednesday that AEW pay-per-views are now going to be available on Amazon Prime.
Oh, is it
That
Amazon? Yeah. Okay.
that was weird because here's why. Because if you remember back to when they announced this new 5-year deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, they made it pretty clear that exclusive negotiating rights going forward in terms of distribution for television and pay-per-view were going to lie with Warner Brothers Discovery from the start of the deal in January going forward. Now, that's not to say they couldn't get a third show and put it on another network, but I'm talking for existing pay-per-view properties, Dynamite and Collision. Those were all going to be Warner Brothers Discovery distributed, with the exception of the pay-per-views until they get the Max side
Okay.
set up for the pay-per-views, which is it's just not set up yet. They're going to set that up. It's just not there yet. So what in the fuck are they doing? Apparently just willy-nilly making a deal with Amazon?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't get it. I mean, I buy the shows on Fight TV. Like I buy the
Do
shows
you
on
have
Fight.
Amazon Prime?
Yes, but I buy the
I,
shows on Fight
the
because,
only reason I would want that is so I could watch Man in the High Castle. That's about it.
well, here's the thing too, right? Like it's $50 on Prime and it's $50 on Fight. Like you're spending $50.
Either way,
It's just who do you want to give your money to?
sure.
Is kind of the, you know, and look, eventually I think they're going to have to move to the PLE model like WWE did. They're going to have to because $50 for a wrestling show in 2025 is ridiculous.
That's right. The pay-per-view model is being phased out, and that's been a consumer-driven move.
The pay-per-view model can stick around. The pay-per-view model still works in boxing and it still works in the UFC. But what you got to remember is grand scheme of things, as much as I don't like the UFC's president, Dana White, I think he's a fucking scumbag and an idiot. Uh, what you got to remember is the UFC's been around a lot longer than the AEW. I almost said the
Yes, it
WWE.
is.
That's not true.
Yeah,
They've been around a lot longer than AEW. They got a bigger fan base than AEW. That's why they can get away with charging $100 for shows because they got people who are going to pay it fucking no matter what.
yeah.
Because them
Not
fuckers
me.
are crazy. Because them MMA fuckers are crazy.
Oh yeah, they got issues. They think pro wrestlers are crazy. Pro wrestlers are relatively sane compared to MMA fighters. Those guys have
Most
got issues.
mostly, yeah, you're right. Here's the other thing that I don't understand about what they're doing here. They've started running smaller buildings with the exceptions of the pay-per-views.
Yes.
And to their credit, they filled up the Staples Center pretty good tonight. Crypto.com Arena, whatever the hell you want to call it. I still call it the Staples Center because that's what it was forever.
Yeah.
But, like, are we sure them running these smaller buildings is helping?
I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Because some weeks, like when they were in like when they had Maximum Carnage, that building they ran for Maximum Carnage, I think it was in Cincinnati. That was a great venue. That was cool. They're running Roy Wilkins Auditorium in Minneapolis or St. Paul or whatever it is in 3 weeks. That's a good venue because NXT has run there for house shows before.
Mhm.
And I think WWE's run there too for regular house shows. But here's the thing, AEW still thinks they're on WWE's level. They think they're doing this with WWE right now.
Not
They're
even close.
not.
Not even close.
That's the problem.
Yeah. They just got
They
to be
still think
realistic. They need to be a little bit more realistic.
because for a while it was like that, where they were up there kind of starting to tussle with WWE in terms of the ratings. They were kind of in a scrap fight back and forth for a little bit, but they were never firmly in control of anything.
But then at the same time, after that happened, that's when the WWE began to undergo so many radical changes. Not just
Right,
creatively,
because
as far as, business changes, the departure of Vince McMahon, Triple H, being head of creative made all the difference in WWE surging way ahead, in my opinion.
well, WWE was always going to be ahead, even marginally. They were always going to be ahead. Because they're a publicly traded company, because their TV rights are worth so much more and would have been, irregardless of if AEW got ahead of them somehow,
Hmm.
which wasn't impossible a few years ago. It is now. It is now fundamentally not possible for them to get ahead. But the problem AEW has and has had is they're trying to act like they're on WWE's level, and they're just not. They're not
Right.
up there, man. Now, say what you want about the in-ring product. The in-ring product, yeah, I think it's pretty comparable, if not AEW having a slight edge in that regard. But again, the problem then becomes, well, WWE's got better storytelling.
Hmm.
WWE has bigger stars to just attract more people. The
Exactly.
Rock, Travis Scott, fucking Pat McAfee, for fuck's sake.
Right.
They got the backing of Endeavor, who owns the UFC.
Yep.
They got all this stuff.
They got Joe Testosterone doing
They got
announcing.
Joe Testosterone.
Oh, yeah, as I like to call him.
Dude, I don't know, man. I think AEW needs to kind of take a look in the mirror and say, we
What?
made some bad investments,
Why don't you just be realistic and focus on the things that you do well?
or focus on what you can control, because you can't control the ratings beyond a certain point. I mean,
Correct.
you can control the rating from a promotion perspective and from a perspective of doing good television. But beyond that, you can't control the ratings. Like, you can't make people sit down and watch your show every week,
Right.
but you can make them want to by promoting and good advertising and all that, which they don't do very well anyway. But the other problem is they're on kind of a weak network, right? With TBS, they're on kind of a weak network now. TBS used to be this monster network, no doubt
It
about it,
used
but
to
they're a
be
weaker network.
like the biggest thing in cable back in the cable TV days. I remember when it was WTBS.
Well, it's not that anymore.
Yep, that was decades ago. Before you was even born, probably.
Probably. But here's the thing. Do you think, in your opinion, if AEW just said, all right, we've made some bad investments, because they did make some bad investments. The video game didn't work out at all, even though they're going to make another one. The video game didn't work out at all. They lost money on
Hope they
that.
hired different people to work on the next one.
Hopefully, uh, for all our sakes, please let them do that. Um, Chris Jericho has gone from a great investment to a terrible one in the process of the last 2 years,
It's kind of
right?
sad. That one bothers me because he used to be one of my favorites. You know,
Um, there's other guys on this roster that you look at and say, what the fuck? Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. Yeah, great investment, Tony.
well, it just depends. Like I said, I think there's a place for a team like that. It's just they need to be used. I think they were used better back when they lost every match. They were still very entertaining and got a good reaction from the crowd, but they
Yeah.
seem to be more credible as quote unquote jobbers,
Yeah. And
And,
that's
and
the
that,
frustrating
that's not a
thing.
bad thing necessarily.
Look, I don't know what AEW is going to do in terms of long-term viability outside of where they are right now. I don't think they'll ever get back to 2021 level, like 2021, 2022. I don't think they can get back there,
Really?
only
Yeah.
because they were in a like once in a generation type situation where WWE was being run generationally poorly.
It was. It was really
and,
bad.
and they were releasing people that shouldn't have been released, and they were bringing people up from NXT and butchering them and then cutting them loose. That's what happened to Swerve. Swerve
Right?
got called up and then was released 6 weeks later. Like,
Yeah. If you blinked, you would have missed him.
I think he was on TV once.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. And if you didn't
Uh,
watch NXT, you didn't get a chance to know him at all.
they cut bait with Adam Cole, which I still think was really stupid, and just let him go to AEW. They let Daniel Bryan walk out the door.
Right? They let Cody Rhodes go.
Well, they'd done that years prior,
Right.
but like they'd no, they'd not only let Cody Rhodes go, they had pissed Cody Rhodes off so much to the point that he demanded his release,
Right.
got it, went on the indies, and then started the other company.
Right.
Like, this is how bad it had been for so long. Cody Rhodes left in like 2015, 2016, and doesn't come back to WWE until 2022. So, again, 2021 AEW was such a weird time because they had the perfect kind of everything, right? Because you had Kenny as world champion at the time. You still had Cody. Granted, we didn't know this then, but not for very long, you still had Cody. They
Right.
just, in late 2021, they just signed CM Punk and
Correct.
they just signed Brian Danielson and they just signed Adam Cole.
That's when they were
And
really at their peak.
and it looked like, holy shit, these guys are about to go on a kind of run here and maybe get up and maybe go with it. And for a while they did. For about a year. From
Yeah,
All
they had
Out
about a good
21
six
to,
months to a year before things kind of came unraveled. And with Punk leaving the way he did, they've never quite fully recovered from that. Still,
no,
in my opinion.
and they better give Christian Cage a thank you card for convincing Copeland to come over there.
Oh, I agree.
Because if Christian's not there, they never get him. Ever. They would never have stood a chance. Because he would have asked for such an astronomical number that it would have been ridiculous. And he might have anyway, but Tony gave it to him.
Sure.
But they better give Christian Cage a thank you card because I legitimately believe it was Christian that recruited him and said, please, please, please.
Yeah.
And Copeland went. Um, they would have gotten Osprey no matter what because Osprey's buddies with Kenny and the Bucks. So they were always going to get Osprey at some point. They were always going to get Jay White. They were always going to get, all these New Japan guys. Once they started that relationship with New Japan, they were going to get those guys. They're getting Mike Bailey. They're getting these guys that you knew they were going to get. They're, I guess, getting Josh Alexander, which I think is a great pickup. Them getting Josh Alexander, he's a guy that they could feed right into the main event. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
he's coming from TNA, correct?
yeah, and I thought he'd go to WWE. I'm a little surprised he's, I guess, going to AEW, but looks like they're going to get him. A lot of people thought they'd get Jordan Grace. They never had a chance at Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace had a deal with WWE months ago.
Yes, she did. And I think
Um,
that I think she's going to do well there.
she's in NXT right now, but she'll be fast tracked, I'm sure. Other people that whose contracts are coming up fairly soon that they may have a chance at. Zack Sabre Jr. I guess his deal is up at some point this year. They could get him. Uh
Oh yeah,
don't
he
count on
now
it.
he has appeared once or twice in AEW, has he not?
Yeah, and he's like probably the best technical wrestler going now with Brian out of the business. So, if they can get Zack Sabre Jr., if they get Josh Alexander, if that comes to fruition and they put pen to paper on that, they get Josh Alexander, as I believe they will. If that deal's not done already, it will be.
Yeah.
That's a core, that's a nucleus that Josh Alexander, Zack Sabre Jr., Mike Bailey, you've got Will Ospreay. You can build around those guys,
Mhm.
right? All those guys are, with the exception of Josh Alexander, 35 or younger. Alexander's the oldest one in that bunch, and he's 37. So you can
Well,
build around
yeah.
these guys.
I think people don't realize how long he's been wrestling. He's been wrestling quite a while.
Right. He was in TNA forever. He was a job guy in TNA
Sure.
forever. It was freaking Scott D'Amore that said, wait, this guy's got something. We should do something with this guy.
Yes.
And they did
It'll
finally.
be interesting to see what develops in the weeks to come.
I don't know for sure what they're going to do going forward. but I'm intrigued by a few things on the business side. The TV side is really not that interesting right now just because John Moxley needs to drop the title, guys. He does.
I feel like it's
But
getting stale. And when someone
getting
like Devin, who's like a big Moxley fan, agrees with you and me that it's getting very, very stale, that's very telling.
Devlin is the biggest Moxley mark I know, and for him to say this run is getting stale
Yeah.
should really make you look around and say, "Oh,
Yep.
that's where we are. The marks are turning. That's not ideal."
I think it'd be nice to give John Moxley a nice vacation, let him go home and be with his family for a while and heal up and rest. Take a good 6 month sabbatical.
But here's the problem, Russ. Who are you going to put the belt on
Well, they
that
could
they
have put it
haven't
on
fucked
Copeland,
over?
but they kind of ruined the credibility of that now, didn't they?
That they haven't fucked over and completely maligned?
Yeah.
Who are they going to put the belt on?
I don't know at this point.
Hangman? You already did that once. Didn't work.
Yeah, I don't see that. Well, maybe Swerve, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, they did that once, but it worked. I mean, the argument for Swerve is he's already been champion once, and it was a really good title run that he had.
Yes, it was
So
one of the better ones they've had.
I think it was top three or four. You know, I still think Omega and MJF are the two best title runs. And then you put Moxley's first run with the belt when he had it during the pandemic. You'd put that in there.
Before all this bullshit they're doing now with
Right.
the Death
Because
Squad or whatever, Death Runners or whatever the hell they call
because
themselves.
let's not forget, John Moxley has had good world title runs in this company. It wasn't that long ago that he was viewed as like one of the most consistent world champion. Like, put the belt on this guy, you're going to get something good out of
Yeah,
it regardless. Because remember when they fired Punk and put the belt on Moxley, or when Punk got suspended after Brawl Out
right.
in 2022, they put the belt on Moxley and he dropped it almost immediately to MJF.
Yeah, it was pretty quick, wasn't it?
So it's not like Moxley's immune to short runs. He's not. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with Moxley, with Copeland. I would imagine we're headed for Copeland Christian again. I would imagine we're headed for Swerve Moxley. Maybe it's a three-way at
I hope not.
Dynasty.
I get tired of
Maybe
the
it's a
three-way
four-way.
dance.
It could just be a four-way. I mean, they might actually do. Here's what I think they could do. This is legitimately now what I think they're going to do. Christian, Mox, Swerve, Cope in a four-way. That's what they're going to do.
That could be a great big schmoz.
I'm telling you, I think that's what they're going to do. Do I know for a fact that's what they're going to do? No, but I'm telling you with a fair amount of certainty after watching the product for
And you
5 years
think,
now.
well, yeah. And you kind of know how they think, but they still could go through all that and still leave the title on Moxley.
And if they do that, they're dumber than we think they are.
Yeah.
And we think they're pretty stupid right now.
And mind you, we're not saying Moxley's a horrible wrestler by any means.
No, he's not. He's great.
It's just that
That's the
right now
problem.
he's not being really used for in the best way. It's not really helping him at all.
This is all a booking issue. All of this issues with Moxley, it's all booking because he's still a good wrestler. He's still fantastic. It the issue is they're putting so much into this Death Riders angle and it's not working.
No, it's not.
And they've been doing this for 7 months now.
It felt even longer than that, but yeah, I can believe that. It felt like it's been going on forever, and I just want it to be over.
Were you not begging Remsburg to just count three after that third spear from Copeland?
Oh
Can he
yeah,
not
that would
just
have
like
been nice. That would have been a great ending.
just count to three? Just count to three. Just like end my pain right now.
Yep, you got it.
Oh, folks, it's after midnight. I work in the morning. We're gonna end this show here. We'll be back next week.
Yes, we
Like, comment,
will.
subscribe on the YouTube, follow the TikTok, leave a like, leave a comment, and be sure to follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms as well as we're back on the audio feeds this week. First
Right.
time in a while we've been on the audio feeds, Russ. I think
Yes.
we're gonna do this for like a while because I
It
don't know why
sounds
we
great.
weren't on the audio feed, but
Well, that sounds great. Hopefully, we'll get some good feedback from people and let us know what they think. And if you think we're just full of crap, go ahead and say so. We don't care.
we might actually be full of crap, Russ.
Well, I won't say anything mean to you if you tell me I'm full of crap. I'll just say I've been called worse by better people, right? To quote Don Callis.
All right, folks. We will see you next week. Have a good one.
Have a good
Until
one.
then, Damon, player me.